Hey everybody. In this video, I'm going to just tell you certain tips in terms of how to get the project going. Previously, I told you about what it takes to break down any kind of a project and plan accordingly, right? We covered project planning, and let's cover and understand what it takes to have a to build one, right? Now, first thing is you have to assemble your team, right? Your first task in this phase in terms of having to understand what kind of skills that you already have, what is necessary in additional, based on the capacity planning that you have done and understood, right? In the previous phase point of view. So you have to assess more deeper the skills that are needed for project, and you can get the right people onboarded for this. And you can share, I'm pretty sure in the planning phase, you have done that analysis. This is more about having to understand. Again, you maybe at this stage point, if you have not communicated your work breakdown structure yet, but you are assembling the team and to share your thoughts in terms of how their current right skill sets will actually help to evolve with the work breakdown structure that you've done during your planning phase, right? And so in which you should also share your best estimates that you had for the necessary task, major task in place and the activities that you had thought about. Next is, and also this is assembling the team and making sure uh, you don't forget the budget, time, and money for any kind of a training that is necessary during this conversation. Come to an agreement, and so that you cover any kind of a gaps that is surfaced with this team meeting context. Second thing is you have to plan your assignments, right? If you have built your own team, that means you've probably already decided who will do what. Or if you've inherited a team but worked with the members before 13 members, and you can still make the assignments for yourself. But if a new member comes in, unfamiliar group is actually assigned to you, depending on the reorg, whatever has occurred, you have to first list the people on the team and the skills that is required versus what they have. Talk to each member about his or her own skill set before you match the people to task. That's just very important unless you have team that has come along with you for the different stages or different initiatives, right? So it's this approach really starts the process of team communication and cohesion building, right? So clearly you can't do everything yourself, even if you want to. You need to make sure you give each person the information, the resources they needed to succeed, and then back off, let your team members also do their jobs based on their roles. You need to understand as the project proceeds, there's a need for delegating certain tasks, right, than originally anticipated, probably, right? So the next step is creating the schedule. It would be nice if you could tally up the to-dos that is needed. And again, you have done your initial estimation. Now you have to make sure with the resources that you have, you will need XYZ time, right? In order to get exactly what you have been asked for. But there obviously the reality is most projects come with fixed beginning and end dates regardless of available resources, right? It's very hard to say that, okay, I do my groundwork estimations. There are less practical situations that we have a fixed deadline here, and you need to get that leverage, whatever resources you have, less resources, and get to having a complex things done, right? But to create a realistic schedule within those constraints, you know, work backward from any drop deadlines you know about. You're given a certain time frame, consider that. That is the dates that cannot be changed, right? In certain scenarios, risk in that you have based on business decisions. To see when your deliverables must be ready, work backwards in this kind of a scenarios. Or ideal scenario will be you have to go in sequence and get to the ETA, but most of the times in this kind of a rapid developing technology world, you'll always have a tight deadlines, deadlines that you need to work backward, right? If an annual report is due for shareholders meeting and you know it really takes like at least 2 weeks, or finally having like an final copy point of view for the report to be really premierly viewed before the meeting, right? That means why do I need 2 weeks? That whatever you convey to the VP or CEO, you have to make sure the content that is put there is being evaluated, multiple stakeholders that are involved in the project journey, right? Okay, that's just one thing. So depending on the complexity of a project, you can rely on the tools such as the critical path method and performance evaluation review technique chart also, right? So why performance evaluation and review technique chart? To help the sequence, in order to help with the sequencing of tasks, right? And then Gantt chart map out with their chronological order or the duration to get the high level mapping point of view, right? So all a rule of a thumb is work backward, and certain tips is, let's understand what tips can help you for delegating effectively during this phase. One is, presume that you have already recognized the capabilities of your team members, right? Trust your team's ability to get the job done. Focus on results and let go of your need to get involved in how tasks are accomplished, as long as you have gone to, because if you've already recognized the capabilities of your team members, what's the necessary for micromanaging it? Unless you see a risk involved, but you should be involved, but not necessarily involved while the tasks are in the process of getting accomplished. So consider delegation as a way to develop the skills of your team, right? Always delegate the lowest possible level to make the best use of your staff resources. But in order to achieve that, you have to make sure you're explaining the assignments clearly and providing the needed necessary details for your resources for successful completion, right? So, and do not automatically solve problems and make decisions for your staff members. Focus on generating alternatives together. Again, even in this process, you can use our framework that we discussed in the planning phase. Use the work breakdown structure or similar outline, whatever works for your project, in order to list the activities, tasks, and plot out the sequence by determining which ones are critical. So remember, the prioritization is important to achieve the desired final outcome, right? So at least you have come to the level of composing the rough draft tasks and questions that are needed. And make sure you identify the bottlenecks that could upset the schedules. Once you have um, identified the deliverables, to create a schedule with realistic due dates, right? And you have to determine your ways to remove bottlenecks, right? Or build in, again, the build-up and the planning phase need to be done sequentially or parallelly, hand in hand, how it works before things are communicated. So you have established control and communication system within your team and stakeholders that you've identified, and updating, revising the schedule, everything is done, right? Keep all the stakeholders involved. Finally, you hold a kickoff meeting, right? So together with all the key stakeholders, you're holding a kickoff meeting, go over the project plan and objectives with the group in as much detail as possible and review the proposed time frame. Be sure to clarify the roles and responsibilities, and do encourage people to point out any spots where problems could occur and improvements could be made. And you should be open enough to adjust your estimates, planning, and schedule activities accordingly. Next is question is to ask, maybe even in the kickoff meeting, probably you can give a glimpse, is what will it take to actually do the work? You've identified everything, but to determine your costs, breaking down the project into following categories, some of them one you have to consider is both, let's say, in terms of the team capacity point of view, have you considered ongoing and any additional costs that could be involved in terms of employees and any contract workers that you have considered? Because that is typically the biggest part of the budget, right? Is any travel needed? Is everyone on site? Or will employees be brought from other locations for any discussions point of view, right? The travel cost, training, does everyone know how to use the tools, on do they have skill set that's necessary, or do they need to work with, like, for example, the cloud vendors, or any discussions of the compute capacity, anything for that matter. I'm just giving you one example, right? To understand, to get to the training planning point of view, do team members who need to travel, or will the cloud provider come to campus and give the training, right? You need to consider all the aspects ahead of a time, right? And is there any other additional, for example, if you're testing your web application, does it need to be tested in all mobile or different operating system based, Mac, Windows, everything for that matter? So, but do you have good supplies already present in order to get to the point of revising it, right? And so consider all aspect point of view. Hopefully you don't have to relocate anyone at any cost point of view. Is there any maintenance expenses needed? What kind of a research, if any, need to be done, at what cost? So overall capital expenditure evaluation is also needed, right? For any, is there any technical upgrades involved here, right? What kind of expensive equipment is involved, if not upgrade in the new purchase point of view? If so, how it will be done, right? So, what will be your overhead expense that can be projected earlier stage of a time? And yes, maximum earlier stage of a time. So please make sure you have clarity with building up a project ahead of a time before you get to implementing and understanding how to execute the project. Yeah. Right. I'll see you soon in the next video to talk about some of the strategies that are involved in executing and implementing.